So this is my full showcase of my Satisfactory Notre Dame build. As you can see here, this is Notre Dame. It wasn't initially intended to be Notre Dame. It was supposed to just be a general base with a storage system that was connected up to my railways. The reason being is I usually do all of my major constructing from having like a 6 freight train. You know, it's kind of like using that as like a mobile base. So I just wanted a normal base, you know, that could store all of my stuff and sort it for me. So that way, you know, I wasn't spending inordinate amounts of time doing that. Working with a friend, we were trying to think of ways to make things look very 40k. We came up with this kind of design. Then in the storage system, you know, someone jokingly said, you know, storage systems should always be cyclical. So I started with this bit, made a circular storage system, and then I stopped halfway and then realised that there's enough space there to kind of make this look a bit like a cathedral, still in keeping with the 40k design, and then bit by bit it started to look more and more like Notre Dame. And given that my fiancée is French, you know, she kind of liked this, so I decided to finish the project. It's got all sorts of features, and we're going to go over there in a minute, and we're going to go and have a look at them. I'm not really going to be showcasing all of this, it's not really interesting, but my starter builds were all these. I like to make like little mini factories, you know, that would transport all of my things, and they would focus on maybe making all of the resources, you know, that pertain to one specific raw material. So this one here is iron, that's copper. This makes more advanced things based off of iron stuff, like you know, rotors, and reinforced steel plates. That's modular structures, I think. This is just a collection centre that takes all of this stuff and then transports into this giant bus. This was my first base, which then transports things by these buses to an even bigger base over there, which I no longer use anymore. I mean, I only really use it to get the raw materials with which to make bigger projects. This whole thing is just one giant glorified starter base. That, however, is the main, you know, what we're going to be having a look at today. So Notre Dame has 2 train stations, one for unload and one for load. Unload, as you can guess, you know, takes all of the things from these freights into storage systems, which automatically sort and categorize everything. Turn down the desktop volume there. And the load station is on the other side of the structure, and it takes everything. It takes things that I've put into particular storage containers and then loads them back onto the train, so that way I can carry on doing my thing, and I don't necessarily need to worry about having to keep going up and down from the train's platform, you know, to the storage system whilst I try and collect my thoughts and put everything together. So this is the storage system. Here's how it works. It's nothing too revolutionary. All the stuff goes into these storage containers, which then feed into these belts that go all the way to the bottom. These smart splitters take out certain items, one on the left, one on the right, and then transport them up. These have to be the same because they will transport, you know, one specific item onto that specific item's belt, and it's like this all the way down and across. So these are all iron rods and iron plates all the way down and all the way up. There are 15 of these rows, which means that, you know, we can sort up to 30 items as quickly as it takes for the items to just get to the end, not factoring in blockages on these lines, which will be sorted when I've unlocked belt number 5, you know, the Mark 5 belts, because that should hopefully make things a lot quicker. So each of these items transports them onto these belts. So this belt will be like iron rods, and this belt will be iron plates, or vice versa. And then they will transport them to the end, where they will be sent up, and we'll catch back up with that later. Any item that is unidentified will go to the end and then join into these belts here. I'm just going to show you that join. So any unidentified items will join this belt here, which then feed around into this storage container here. This, big silo thing. This will, for the most part, it takes anything that's uncategorized, and the only things that are really useful that are uncategorized are personal items. So this can sort up to 30 building items, things like iron rods, iron plates, encased concrete, encased beams, things like that. These will store all of the personal items to a point, and then they will join up all here, and then go along this belt, and then they will be sorted themselves. So it very, very quickly sorts up to 30 construction items, and then a slightly bit more slowly can sort near enough every single personal item in the game. Things like jetpacks, fuel, stuff like that. This green container here is something that I can manually add things into. So I'll just do this with some fuel here. It will come out here and then join belt number 1. And this is just that way, there is a method by which I can manually add things into the system. Now it has 2 inputs itself. This input goes all the way to the top, because there's another version of this, at the top, so that way I don't necessarily need to come all the way down here just to re-add things into the system. Then there's also this one here, which I will come back to later. The place is connected up with tubes, hyper tubes. This is the loading station. So this one's kind of its own build, and it's not built into the base of the structure the way that this one is. So I'm trying to keep it looking pretty and in keeping, so it's old-fashioned, with a pitched roof. I'm struggling to get onto these here. Actually, do you know what? We'll sort this out now. So this is fed all the way from the other side of this building via these containers. These containers store masses of overflow, because my oil factory is a million miles away, and I don't necessarily want to have to go all the way to the oil factory just to get more fuel, and I don't want the fuel that goes into overflow that we struggle with, that couldn't be sorted into this current system, to go to waste, because there is a sink somewhere. So these bins store excess that I've put into the system but couldn't be sorted into the bins that I'll show you later on. All along here, and that's I'll show you where they're fed from in a moment, but this then feeds into this here, which goes all the way along there and then back into the reintroductory system. So you can also see why it is that I haven't connected this. I'm just going to connect this as and when it is necessary, because it's going to take forever to go around the system, and it will clog up the system, and it will just go around the system continuously forever. If I was to link this up, which is why I haven't linked it up just yet. It will be kind of like an as and when, on a need basis. I'll link this up, and it will just top up all of the bins that I'm going to show you a little later on. We're going to now just take Hypertube 1 to the main storage system, so I can show you where all of this ends up, the end product, and then we'll go into how it all works out after we've seen that. So this is the top, and I love this. I love this circuit board looking stuff, where just all of this feeds into those little spines. This is the storage system. And each bin's got its own little splitter here, so that way I can see what the items are gonna, what item's gonna be in you know, the bin to its right, and over there the bin to its left. So this will have just been topped up with the fuel that I just put in it. We've got these circular walkways, which I absolutely love. This just works so well, all of this. And then this bit at the bottom here, you know, has got the hypertube links that link up the rest of the base. I think this looks really good. What I've done here is nothing revolutionary. I'm not giving any tips away. I've attached these to the wall. It's on the outside, and then curved these forward so that way they are flush with the foundation that I then put in to act as the roof. You can all look up how to do, you know, circular storage container systems. This is all just using the same mechanisms. I'll show you the rest of this area, you know, the main cathedral. Then we'll go into how it all works. Actually, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go into how it works now, so that way everything makes sense. So this is the place that I don't necessarily like to visit because it looks very cluttered and messy, which is why I didn't want it on display. But all of the conveyor lifts that bring everything up, you know, from the sorting system belts, feed them onto then these belts. Each one has a splitter with an overflow. This output has to be any, rather than, you know, the item that is specifically designed to be on this, so that way the system doesn't clog up if an item that shouldn't be in there gets in there, which should never happen, but just in case. And then this is the overflow, and then the overflow for all of these, you know, goes onto this track. And I'll show you how the overflow works in a minute, but it'll all end up in the thing that you've already seen. These all feed onto the plane outside. And the thing about Notre Dame is it's got these like spines around the outside of it. I know they're supposed to go all the way along the length of it, but you know, there's only so much I can do. But where it's really noticeable on, you know, the structure itself, which I think I've got a painting of in my bedroom, is around the back, around the cyclical structure at the back. This again was not intended; it just happened, and that's why, you know, we ended up making a Notre Dame build. But these kind of act as those spines, which is really good. But these take all of the items and then feed them into the various bins. So we're now going to go on to the... Oh, by the way, this is no storage system. This is where I would put things, you know, as I'm gathering all of the resources necessary. So that way I don't necessarily need to keep going down to the train station every time I've filled up my inventory. I can just put them into here, and then these will transport them into, you know, one container at a time into the loading system for the freights. So that way I just go from one train station to the next and load up. Whilst we're out here, this is obviously the pub, and these are just some, you know, just some construction devices that I've got, so that way I can make rifle cartridges on site, because you always need them. We will go into a showcase of the rest of the structure shortly. We're just going to go over, you know, the systems and the functions and the features that the building has. So that's the main storage system. That's what all of that's about. Now this here is the overflow system. So the overflow from down below comes through here, reaches this splitter. This splitter's got, you know, an any overflow setup as well, and it will then feed into these drums. There is one on the other side as well that will feed into those. When these are too full, the overflow will then send all of the items here into the sink. This system here sends items back out, and then across the walkway and then down into the reintroductory system down below that I showed you earlier on. So if I was to just put those in, those will eventually end up back into the system and then be resorted. Yeah. This, on the other hand, although it looks identical, is the exact opposite. You can work it out here. This is for when I know categorically that I don't want items in the system, I just want to throw them in the bin. I can put them in here and then it will just put them into the sink. Now, both of these drum systems here feed into these belts here, which then go over here, and then the exits here, and they rejoin here, and then this is how the overflow ends up, you know, topping up these bins here. So we have got quite a lot of space for resources that can't be sorted into just those bins there. Just in case. Again, it's that way I don't necessarily need to travel all over the world, you know, recollecting things every time, you know, just those small bins run out of materials, but at the same time those do the job of sorting things for me. So that is all with relation to, you know, crafting materials. This storage system here does the same thing but on a much more compact basis for personal items, because personal items, you know, you don't necessarily carry anywhere near as many personal items as you do crafting materials, like, you know, 500 concrete, you know, or just 200, you know, colour cartridges. So the personal items come in from beneath. We saw where that belt fed into here and then through here. This will be the unidentified item and overflow splitter, which will then send things into these extra storage containers. This is a merger that is fed through there, so that way this is the same sort of reintroductory system that I showcased earlier. It's just that this is specifically for personal items, and it will feed through here and then into here. Split 3 times into 3 categories of items. I can't remember my logic for how these were all linked together, but there was a logic for how these were all linked together. These then feed into even more splitters. So, like, you can see here, you know, rifle cartridge, rebar gun, spiked rebar. You know, these are melee weapons. So you can see the rough logic that's going on here. There's far less logic going on here. These all feed through this system here, which I love. I just think it looks really good, into these bins here. So like I say, it's 30 main items that can be sorted really quickly, but anything that isn't sorted by the time the resources get to the end of, you know, those long belts, they're all fed into, you know, one stream, you know, one belt, and then they go through this system. And yeah, it's going to take a little longer, but it can sort far more than 30 items, like far more. That is there just because, first of all, it looks cool. You know, it does kind of look as though it's there. Like I say, that this build at first was supposed to be 40k themed, so this kind of matches. But mainly, I just use it to see, you know, what the power situation is across the world. This is just my personal crafting area. I'll showcase the front a little later on. However, this here is my garage. And again, I will showcase the rest of this when I showcase the front, which I'll do later on. Now, this is the main. We've just gone over the main structure here. I'm now going to showcase the towers and the rest of the, you know, the rest of the build. So these are, the things that you attach to the walls. That way you can attach conveyor belts. I've used them to kind of look a bit like the gargoyle, spiky looking things on Notre Dame. That go around it. So it looks from the top. I made a lot of efforts to try and make this look like Notre Dame as best as possible. So I've really made an effort. So this is the structure that goes over, the first pitched roof. I know this bit looks a lot less like Notre Dame, but there's only so much I could do. Like I say, it wasn't originally intended to be that. I've made it so since then. Now, I don't really have a purpose for all of this space up here beyond it just being what it is. However, I do have some plans. I have not yet unlocked drones, so I don't necessarily know what the distance is or how they work, but I'm kind of teetering on the idea of putting drones up here. So that way they can transport sulfur from over there, because I've got a sulfur mine over there, and coal from over there, and bring them here again, so that way I can make rifle cartridges without having to actually leave the base. That's the long-term plan, but we're not there yet. And this is the back from a distance. I do think it looks good. The towers are actually the thing that took the longest. Everything else took forever as well. It's not like the towers took longer to build than the rest of the building, but the rest of the structure, can be separated into individual parts and components. It's like, each individual part of the storage system, didn't take as long as each individual tower. And this is it from the front. On the real Notre Dame, there's two really long, super thin windows, and this is the best that I could do thanks to a friend of mine. There is a cross there as well, because obviously the cathedral is a Christian cathedral. So this is the front. And it's just a general ramp down on the top. I've been using the power lines to add a bit of decoration, and underneath is a ramp that accesses the garage, so I can drive out. So I'm just going to showcase around Notre Dame. These structures here will just create set roads, because at one point the only way that I was transporting coal around the world was via tractors on autopilot, and there was certain areas where they would all just kind of hit each other and link. So those little manual roads that I've put into the landscape were just to help with managing that. But I've really, like I say, I was really committed to the Gothic look. This was the first wall that I did, from which everything else was kind of born. Like I say, it was supposed to be a 40k themed thing, and Notre Dame just appeared out from that. The original base where we started has splitters, so it just acts as a place where all of the belts feed the main bus, but there are also splitters on every single one of those belts, which is why it's far bigger than just the these little mini towers that go into it. Those splitters take 1/3 of the items out of the bus, and then introduce it into storage containers that go along the length of it here. So this was the first proper base, but it was intended to be temporary. It was intended to be like a forward operating base, because, like I say, the lines didn't feed into it; they fed through it. And I kind of liked the access that it gave me to resources. So there are hypertubes everywhere that can connect up the majority of the world, but when we start getting into the desert areas and the higher up areas, the only way to access them is by train. So these can connect up. These essentially connect up all of my starter bases, as I referred to them, all hypertubes, which can all be accessed from Notre Dame. Well, Notre Dame has one hypertube that will send you to that base, and then that base kind of acts as a hub from which you can then access the rest of this massive starter base. And there are train stations everywhere, so you can get on a train and then go off to where the real work is happening. This is something that I made recently. It is not pretty. It's not supposed to be pretty, but this just kind of feeds items from the main bus this way, in a very similar way into how that was supposed to work, into this storage system here. So that way, as and when I'm running short on particular items, I can bring the train into here, I can access the train, I can access these, I can take exactly what I need, and then I can send the train on, and the train can then go through here and then access Notre Dame. So yeah, this is my showcase of the cathedral, and I'm going to leave it there.